about Naresh, he did register or not. That actually.
Oh, you can share actually your link with him.
About Naresh, he did register or not. That actually.
Julian, I guess you may need to. Oh, you can share actually your link with him.
About Naresh, he did register or not. That actually.
Julian, I guess you may need to. Oh, you can share actually your link with him.
About Naresh, he did register or not. That actually.
Julian, I guess you may need to. Oh, you can share actually your.
It looks like on a loop.
No, I think YouTube is also running.
You will have to stop the YouTube.
Yeah, I stopped it. It was playing on my machine. That was the problem. So I saw the delay, right? So I live streamed it, but it was also showing on my computer. So you've got the live stream, then the view. It should be live on YouTube now. I'm going to check on my phone. Can you see whether it's live streaming?
Yeah, we can see it. I can get. Can one of you quickly paste this link on LinkedIn?
All right. Do you want me to? Yeah, you just do that. That's copying streaming link. I'm going to copy this to all of you so you
Unless
have
you
it.
are on mute in case you're speaking.
I was saying I will post on the LinkedIn page.
I've sent you all a link in that of the YouTube streaming, so you can send that out.
I guess you sent only to me.
Correct this time.
Yeah.
So do you want to record at the same time, or do we need to now?
I guess if it is live streamed, it's already recorded, so we can skip.
Yeah.
Julian, I have a question for you on the chat. We'll wait for 10:30. Oh, let's do a LinkedIn post.
Yep, the answer is affirmative.
Got it. Okay.
This is a community event.
Yep.
So we'll see how many turned up. We've got over 200 registrations, but that doesn't necessarily convert. And I think a lot of people will watch this on YouTube. They're watching it now on YouTube.
We'll get started probably in a couple of more minutes. We'll let We'll give some time for people to join in.
और दरवाजा बंद कर।
We'll give it a couple of more minutes.
Sure.
Do you all see the
Yeah, we can
presentation?
see the slides. It's good.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, we'll probably get started.
Are you sharing the screen?
Okay, we'll get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Hyperledger India Chapter's Blockchain Stories 2021 event. And we are excited to be here in the second week of our annual Blockchain Stories event, where it's all about learning blockchain technology, understanding how it helps us solve some of the tough challenges out there, right? And today we have actually interesting set of speakers. We have speakers ranging, talking about all the way from tokenizations to supply chain to trade finance, right? So we will learn a lot, and also we'll learn about a couple of use cases and about our mentorship project. So we are all excited to be here, and we'll get started. And to get started, we have our first speaker, who is very well known within the community space. I believe you all know Vikram, who is one of our I would say very active members from Hyperledger India chapter, who is also now has really created an impact across different Hyperledger working groups and special interest groups. So Vikram is a solution architect for blockchain at HCL. And along with Vikram, we have Shivendra, who leads blockchain practice and the digital and analytics services for HCL. So without much delay, I'll now hand it over to Vikram and Shivendra to take it over from here.
Yes, thanks, Arun. Thanks a lot. I'm glad to be part of this community. Let me start by sharing my screen. Please let me know once it's visible.
Hi everyone. Hey Vikram, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So let's start.
All right, guys. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are situated. My name is Shivendra. So today we'll be talking about tokenizing the illiquid assets, and we'll be taking you through our board proposition. But before we jump into tokenization and all, right? So just to set the context, we know cryptos are gaining a lot of traction, right? You have seen the price of Bitcoin, you have seen the price of Ethereum. People are going gung-ho about tokens and the cryptocurrencies these days. As we write, as we have written in this presentation, there are more than 6,500 cryptocurrencies, but there might be a couple of hundreds more which might get added, which might have get added in the last week or maybe 10 days, right? So this is the pace, this is the scale which we are talking about. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges, a lot of regulations which has to come in. But the point is, regardless of the volatility, even if you invest in cryptos, I also invest in cryptos. You might have seen in the last couple of days, it has been a really volatile market, right? Specifically in the Bitcoin and the Ethereum space. The point here is, regardless of the volatility, people are going in the direction of crypto, even if they understand, they do not understand. So basically the point is, from a retail investor perspective or from a corporate investor perspective, people are looking at cryptos, right? So, and it's a huge market, right? So yeah, moving on to the next one. But if you really see, apart from cryptos, there is another market which probably retail investors do not know, which is called NFT, right? Non-fungible tokens, or these are non-crypto transactions as such, in a way that people sell these assets. For example, CryptoPunk 9998, which got sold for 532 million. Now people debate this as well, because this was sold for 532 million, but it was basically a flash loan, or maybe which we call a wash trade sort of a transaction, in which the loan got the person purchased CryptoPunk, then the loan was paid within a matter of few seconds or in a minute, right? So these kind of things are also happening in a non-crypto world, where it is beyond Bitcoins and Ethereum, but the trades are happening. For example, for CryptoPunk, or let's say my people's every day, these transactions are happening on Ethereum or other cryptocurrencies. So this is a hugely wide market with a lot of different transactions, a lot of different things which we are seeing. For example, in DeFi, in distributed finance, we are seeing these flash loans and all, which people were not aware like 5-6 years ago, right? These things are coming up. Yeah, so moving on to the next one. But if you imagine the real art, for example, Salvatore Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci, it got sold for 450 million, and a JPEG of CryptoPunk 9998 got sold for more than that, more than this value, right? So you can imagine where the market is heading towards, right? So we are talking more in the digital terms, we are talking more in the NFT terms these days, rather than real sale transactions, which we are used to seeing. For example, this art from Leonardo, right? Yeah, moving on to the next one. So in the non-digitized world, and that is where our key message is, that there are transactions which are happening in the non-digitized world. For example, in real estate, there is a lot of things. There are a lot of things which are happening in terms of tokenizing real estate assets. For example, this Red Swan, situated in US, it's a startup which have tokenized around 2.2 billion of real estate assets. Now the idea was that you should allow accredited investors also to invest into real estate, not only just your high net worth individuals who can invest beyond 10-20 million, right? So you want to allow people who can invest, let's say 500,000, 500K, 400K also in the real estate assets, because previously they were facing challenges of getting good real estate properties within their budget, right? So that is where tokenization, the real estate is really picking up. INX is doing it. There was a German startup which did the same thing. They tokenize assets for around 280 million or so. So this is where the real play is in the real world, apart from NFTs, apart from cryptos, right? So moving on to the next one. So we all know what are they called, right? These are fungible or non-fungible tokens. So Bitcoin's Ethereum of the world, these are all fungible tokens because one unit of Bitcoin is exactly same as another unit of Bitcoin. Non-fungible tokens, obviously CryptoPunk 998 might hold a different value that 9995 of CryptoPunk, right? So NFTs hold different values, right? Now, so moving on to the next one, we'll just understand what are the tokenization benefits, and then Vikram will take you through the OBOL demo. Yeah, over to Vikram.
Yes, thanks, Shivendra. So basically, when we talk about tokenization, so, there are so many things that, I can, probably talk about, for example, tokenization of identities, tokenization of assets. So when we actually talk about, tokenization, we are actually talking about rights management, fractional ownership, liquidity, right? These are the things that we're talking about. So once you have converted any asset into a token, it becomes easier to manage rights on that, right? To manage the ownership of that asset. When we talk about any asset, we have to buy it in full, right? You can't really, go someplace and say, I want half a bike, or maybe I want to own half a Ferrari. Not really possible. So that is where tokenization comes into picture. You can own any asset and have fractional ownership of it. That is the power of tokenization. When we talk about liquidity, so if I went ahead and said that, okay, I wanted to buy a lipstick building, I can't really do that. I don't have that much money. But collectively, maybe all of us, if we all collaborate together, maybe we could do that. So that is where liquidity comes into the picture. That if you can have fractional ownership, then that means any seller or any owner can actually reach out to multiple people, many people, right, to the masses, to give them part of the ownership and make that asset more liquid. So it becomes easier to trade, right? If I own such a building maybe, and I wanted to get some cash out, it's really hard if if there was no fractional ownership, because liquidity would be very low. I don't know how many such investors or high net worth individuals I could find who would be interested in buying that and have that cash handy, right? So that is where it comes into the picture. Then also when you talk about tokenizations, but once you have tokenized it, you put it on blockchain. That means you have now a single source of truth that is reliable and you don't need middlemen. Where there is blockchain, there is transparency. And finally, when we say tokenization, we don't always mean that one is to one relationship. We are not saying if there is one building, it has to be a token, or we are not saying that if you have a coin that is valued, it has to be a token. You can have a collection of it as a token, collection of art as a token, right? You can do all that with tokenization, right? So tokenization holds many meaning. It could be a fungible token, it could be a non-fungible token, it could be a collection of assets as a token, or it could be one asset per token. So that is what tokenization is. And once you have this, once you have tokenized your asset, there are so many benefits that you get out of it. Because once you have tokenized it, that token will have its own characteristics. By characteristics, I mean, it will have its own metadata. It is going to be treated as an active object. That means it would have rights and actions associated with it, right? So that is where this solution OBOL comes into picture. So what we are essentially talking about here is, when I talk about any tokenization solution, what is it that I'm looking at? A token. You should be able to define a token. You should be able to create a token. You should be able to issue a token to someone, right? You should be able to trade that token. Once you have traded it, you may want to redeem that token. And then on top, you also want governance. So I guess, when you talk about any token, these are the few things that you look at, right? So When we say define would mean defining its characteristics in terms of metadata that should be associated with it, the constraints that should be associated with it, the rules that should be associated with it. Similarly, when you want to create, there should be some constraints as well. So that is what we are looking at, when we do tokenization. So tokenization, obviously, what we want a simplified and fast tokenization journey, right? So when you tokenize something, we are moving from centralized systems to decentralized systems. So it could be built on various platforms. Hyperledger Fabric now supports tokenization. So people have started creating use cases on Hyperledger Fabric with the ERC20 tokens, ERC721 tokens, and the hybrid tokens, right? So that we have started. So you can do that on R3 platform, right? So there are various platforms that you can choose, but end the goal is you want tokenization, you want simplified tokenization. And what if I told you that when you want to do that, you don't necessarily need to write a smart contract every time? What if there is a common smart contract which can take care of all the needs, all the different type of tokens that you wanted to create, be it in real estate, be it in bonds, be it a artwork or any collectible, right? So that is where this solution like Obol came into play, right? So this solution will is a no-code platform where you can go and create any token, where you can define a token, where you can play with the token, trade that token, right? So I'll show you a quick demo of this solution so that you can relate to it a bit more. Okay, so now when we talk about tokenization, there has to be several parties, right? So let's see, there is a guy in London called Rob, and what Rob wants to do is Rob wants to create a token. So Rob needs to define a token, right? So if you wanted to define a token, you would go and provide it what is the metadata, what are the rules associated. I'll give you some idea about it, right? So when you talk about any token, a token must have a symbol, a token must define the fractional part of it, a token must define who can issue a token, who should be able to see what a token is all about, right? Who should be able to see that who holds what quantity of tokens. You should be able to define the metadata, custom metadata. If it's a building must have a location. A building must be registered with someone. That's how you prove your ownership of that building, right? A building must have a market value. It must have certain features associated with it. It must have a name. A building must have a name, right? Any place we live, there is an address to it, right? And then there should be some rules. Rules should be that there must be a location. That when we are talking about features, you should at least have 3 features defined. So that is what you can do with this solution. So if I wanted to, let's suppose, create a token out of it for this, what I'll do is I'll create a token. I'll say, building. So let's say it is, India chapter building. So I'll name the token India C. I'll say, maybe up to 2 fractional digits. I'll say the login guy is Rob. Observer, let's make Bob the observer. The name sounds good, Bob the observer. Okay, I want to share, Bob should be able to see who holds what quantity of it, right? The location, let's say, the location is Delhi. Registration authority is, National Registration Authority. Market value of that building is 5 million. The features, it is a commercial building. It is a high-rise building, right? It has its own auditorium. So you can define all that. What is the name of that building? Sorry, India chapter building. Right? Now that you have defined it, save it. And now the record has been committed to ledger. So now that ledger could be anywhere. So it could be your Hyperledger Fabric ledger, which is shared with everyone. It could be your Corda ledger, which is unique to every participant. right? So there are so many flavors of blockchain, right? It could be an Ethereum ledger, completely everything is public, right? And now once you have done that, you may want to, issue tokens against it. So let's try that. So India chapter building, I want to issue tokens. I want to issue 4,000 quantity. I want to issue to Alice. And now Alice doesn't need to be a node. Alice could be a user, piggybacking on a node. It could, so let's say Alice user 1 is such user. So you are issuing tokens to that user. So you issued those tokens. Now maybe you wanted to issue 1,000 quantity to John, right? So now that you have issued 5,000 tokens against a 5 million building, that means you only need 1,000 tokens, $1,000 to buy one token. And even there is a fractional ownership, right? 0.2. That means if I had $10 in my pocket, I could go and own a part of this building. So you see, the liquidity that tokenization brings, right? Now, when I said liquidity, maybe, as Alice, what I want to do is I want to, part from, from the ownership of my tokens. I have, I own 4,000 tokens, right? But I don't want that much tokens. Maybe, what I want is, I want some liquidity, right? So I want to, maybe sell 1,000 tokens worth $1 million, and I want to sell it to John. Right. So you trade. So it is as simple as that. So it wouldn't have been, visible without tokenization. This is the, the power of tokenization. So now if you wanted to see who all has that, right? So that is very common requirement when you, deal in such things, that you need someone, some authority to have complete visual over it, or you may not, right? So let's suppose you did. So in that case, it would be very beneficial if someone can have a look and see who owns what quantity of tokens. Alice has 3,000 and John has 2,000, right? So that is where, tokenization comes into picture. This is how, tokenization solved my liquidity issue, the fractional ownership issue. And similarly, you can use tokenization for identity solution as well. So there are, n number of ways this can be achieved, right? So this is, a tokenization solution that I showed. We are open for questions now. Hello.
Vikram, there are certain questions in the chat. It is around how do we determine NFT value and all of that.
Yes. So value. Yeah.
And another question is, how is the security of token ownership maintained?
Okay. So when we talk about, value of an NFT. So value of an NFT, obviously, when we trade in shares, the market determines the price, right? When you trade in any collectible, again, it's the market, and it is the history, the provenance of that art, or maybe how much a similar art was sold. That defines the market price. Similarly, you talk about any NFT, it is the buyer who is determining the price. Same goes for Bitcoin, right? The Bitcoin is the best example, whether it is fungible or non-fungible. It is always the market that defines it. If because we know that there are only a limited number of Bitcoins, and if more and more people want to have take part into it, want to buy that ownership, the price is always gonna go up. So similarly, value of NFT is also determined by the market, by the one who is planning to buy. So I guess that answers it, right? How is security of token ownership maintained? Yes. So that is where how we say that blockchain comes into picture. Let's suppose you are doing it using Hyperledger Fabric. So what it essentially means is, when you do it over there, you have a shared ledger. And if you have a large network, that means you get better immutability. If you have immutability, if you have shared ledger, so ownership of token is quite easy to maintain. And if you're talking about any private blockchain, for example, R3 Carda, in that case, someone owns that, there is a notary concept in the Carda, right? So notary knows all the list of unconsumed transactions. And then you have your own nodes, you have your vault, and your ownership records are stored over there. So whether you use a public blockchain as Ethereum, permission blockchain as Hyperledger Fabric, or completely private blockchain like R3 your ownership is maintained. How can you use tokenization for identity? Okay, so let's assume that you have a record in like and maybe it's a shared ledger. If you put someone's identity over it, so it remains over there and it remains forever. It can never be removed, right? So, but with this, you get into legal challenges. Let's suppose you are in Europe, so you can't. So there is PII concept, right? So you can't really put private data. Even if you do, if someone asks for it, you have to remove it. So that means you can't really have the exact identity written over it. And whatever is written over it, anyone can see. So that is where tokenization of identity comes into picture, where you, instead of putting that identity itself, you put the tokenized information. So you tokenize that identity, create a token out of it, you have that identity information with you, but only put token over there. So that is how you achieve tokenization of identity. Tokenization of asset is akin to listing of firms in stock. Who will maintain OBOL? Yes, in that case, so no one will maintain OBOL. When we say blockchain, right, it means that everyone has, it's a decentralized solution, right? We have moved away from centralized solutions. No one will maintain. Obviously, you would need to put it once. You may need a consortium to manage few of the things, but not maintain it. Maintenance and all that, everyone is doing it together, right? Or maybe if you are talking about the maintenance of code or maintenance of the so that there are new updates that keep coming, it remains secure. Yes, then it's the consortium or the governance agency that will take care of it. Otherwise, it's decentralized solution.
Yeah. So Vikram, Seven, thank you. So actually, your time constraint.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah. So I think Sivendra Vikram is very, I think, really interesting tokenization everyone talking about, and central banks are thinking in terms of the CBDCs and digital currencies. So yeah, thank you for that thing. And next topic, next presenter we have Naresh Jain. He's a co-founder and CEO of Future Tech, and he's going to present very really interesting topic, and the Future Tech working on the sustainability and supply chain. So everybody talking about the Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs, and circular economy. And Future Tech is working on the interesting projects for the customer based in India to build the plastic recycle industry as a kind of circular economy. So over to you, Naresh.
Thank you, Kamlesh. And Vikram, it was a wonderful presentation by you. And it's really interesting, and the space is really opening up with lots of use cases and the requirement in that space. And actually, it is truly bringing a decentralized finance. So the topic of my presentation is about sustainable supply chain. And let me present that a case study. Actually, we have developed a solution called Trace Chain, and that is for tracing and provenance on using Hyperledger Fabric. And we are implementing this for one of the customer here in India. I cannot take the name of the customer. The customer is it's market leading sustainable focused plastic recycling company. Basically, they're into it's a recycler. Currently, they're doing plastic recycling, but they're actually extending it further. So they source all kind of waste plastic, and out of that, after recycling the products which are created, the output is used by the apparel brands of packaging manufacturers. And they are actually talking about developing a sustainable plastic waste management supply chain. where you should not have anything in the land. Whatever plastic waste which is generated, it should not go to landfill. Rather, it should you should be able to create a valuable material which can be reused in different areas. So the objective is that the customer wants to create an extended producer responsibility platform for recycled waste, and not only for plastic, for e-waste or for other areas. So I'll talk about what is EPR, but that is a part of sustainable supply chain. So the major challenge is mainly digitization. It's a connected the different suppliers, stakeholders in supply chain are not integrated. So they're talking about creating a digital platform where all stakeholders can become part of that across the waste management, and having a value chain for recycling. And uh, it also requires a transparency and traceability of recycled materials. So whatever material, so in a digital platform, whatever material is recycled using a waste, we should be able to trace that. And the EPR transactions, again, I'll explain what is EPR. And a lot of documents are also generated. They are required for compliance purposes. So what is EPR? So EPR is actually part of sustainable supply chain. It's a policy approach under which producers are given a responsibility. A responsibility is not only financial responsibility or physical responsibility, even it's a social responsibility. That whatever they are doing, whatever producer them doing, they have a responsibility that it comes back. Whatever carbon they are generating, it should get mitigated. So they should do something so that the plastic and the waste what they're generating, it gets reused. So they have a responsibility so that there's a decrease in environmental impacts by the produce what they have done. And it's throughout the life cycle of that product, on the upstream side, manufacturing side, downstream side. Across all, they should be able to have the responsibility to decrease the environmental impact of the produce what they're doing. But the many challenges. The major challenges are monitoring of EPR programs. So, say there for last couple of decades, for sustainable supply chain and to reduce the carbon impact on environment, EPR policies and rules have come in across multiple countries globally. But the major challenge is how do we monitor? How do we control these programs? Policies are there, frameworks are there, but still implementation, management, or having the effective effective implementation EPR is a major challenge. And the reasons are various, because the entire supply chain is complex. There's so many different stakeholders, and they all have their own systems. They're not connected. Communication is not happening between them. And the cost of compliance is actually increasing. Apart from that, the major challenge is that whatever they are doing, how to measure that? So what is the impact? Whatever recycling they have done, what is the impact of that? How do we measure? And the data is not transparent to all the stakeholders. So there are various challenges. Considering that, we are using our asset track and trace solution, which is based on Hyperledger Fabric, using which we want to track, we are doing tracking, tracing, monitoring, and environmental impact assessment of recycled waste. So in this circle, basically, it's a part of it's a circle economy. What it means, whatever you are producing. So basically, whenever consumers are using it, after that, like wrappers or plastic bottles and all that, they are generating waste. So that waste should get recycled, and we should manufacture something, or we should create something out of that recycled plastic and create some product. So it should be a circular economy rather than linear economy. So in this, there are various stakeholders. It starts from how the waste is, like whenever a consumer is using any product, he produces waste and he dumps that. Again, that's a responsibility of a consumer as well as producer, how to manage that. So in India, so because this solution of this is being implemented in India, the waste pickers, they collect waste from the landfill, and they go to nearby area where kabadiwala ragmans are there, who collects the waste, which goes to a bigger aggregator who collects waste from multiple kabadiwala. And in fact, they also segregate the waste, because whatever waste is collected by the waste picker, there can different kind of waste is there. So waste is segregated, comes to waste aggregator. The aggregator then gives it to recycler, and then recycler recycles the different kind of products, different kind of waste. And there are different kind of recycler, and not necessarily that each recycler is recycling everything. So even in plastic, we are talking about, there are different kind of plastic. So each recycler would have different strengths. So recycler recycles the plastic waste, creates granules out of that. Then those granules are given to say yarn manufacturer, fabric manufacturer, and then it goes to say the final product manufacturer, which say we are using manufacturing t-shirts, so using recycled plastic. So then manufacturer would produce using that fabric or yarn, which is from the waste plastic, and then finally it goes to consumer. And many times you must have seen that on a t-shirt, when you buy, it says that it's made like it is made of using the recycled waste. But there's no way of verifying. There's no way of verifying that the whether the plastic what is used in manufacturing of that is actually recycled. And that is where the solution comes. Because here what we are talking about, bringing all of these stakeholders together and tracking and tracing of each and everything. So when all of these come together, the data is recorded in blockchain, and that data is connected with each other. The monitoring is there in terms of quantity, how much quantity has been. It's basically a relationship between input and output, and based on the geographic location, based on the type of plastic or the assets, and how it is moving between different parties. So the complete transparency is there because of that. So let me go a little deeper here in terms of what all is being done here. So we are doing traceability of waste or recycled material across the entire supply chain, where we are recording data on blockchain. We are also calculating the impact analysis. The amount of carbon is mitigated by collecting whatever waste has been collected. So what is the impact of that? So there's a calculation, so impact analysis is done. And in this process, auditor certificate is also there, which is provided by the auditor. So verification, because in this industry, a lot of frauds happen. And because various stakeholders, the entire supply chain is not connected, and there's not enough transparency, there's not enough proof points. Because of that, same data is actually used multiple times to say that they are actually doing basically they are mitigating the carbon. So here, so audit certificate also comes in picture. Certificates can be verified through blockchain, for which like we're using hash algorithm. Then EPR certificates are produced, which are used for compliance purposes. So EPR certificates are given to producers, and producers buy those EPR certificates, and those certificates they use to submit to show that they have taken the responsibility. And although there's a complete traceability, because even from regulatory point of view, they need to prove that the certificate what they're showing, how the material has come from, what kind of waste they have used for that, from where that waste has come, whether from land or from the ocean, from which geography, and what kind of waste. A complete traceability becomes part of the EPR, and even certificate can be printed, and compliance reporting can be done based on that. And there are a lot of documents which are generated, which are needs to be secured. So we are using blockchain for multiple purposes here, which is helping in sustainable supply chain. So current status of the project is actually we are targeting to go live in January 2022, where initially we'll be onboarding plastic waste recyclers, waste aggregators, producers, auditors, and different suppliers. In the later phases, we are targeting to introduce blockchain so loyalty program. And this is very, very important that basically based on token. So using tokens, because we have to create a large ecosystem. We have to onboard different stakeholders. So tokenization can help in bringing them on board and extending the entire platform from Ragman to consumer. So initially, we are not bringing Ragman or the consumer on platform, but finally, the platform will be extended from Ragman to consumer, and the platform will be extended to across multiple geography. So so this is what I want to present as a case study, which you are doing for a customer here in India. So I'm happy to take your questions.
Any questions?
So, hi, this is Vikram here. So, this, I guess, this thing, is part of ESG, right? Environmental Social Governance, right?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, this kind of a solution is quite needed as well, given that we are where we are, and, and so much things are happening towards climate as well. I think, it actually, touches so many, aspects, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions on chat. There is one question that's asking, waste processing cost is too high. How will it offset blockchain cost?
So first of all, I would say that when we say the blockchain cost is very high, see, it's a technology solution, and I do not fully agree that blockchain cost is that high. Yes, of course, infrastructure requirement is there, but otherwise, when you use any technology solution, there's a cost, but the kind of reward you get, the kind of efficiency you receive, that actually offset your cost much faster. Okay, so that's what my observation and my belief is, and whatever I've seen, because it's not actually as such can be directly measured. Second is blockchain definitely adds value in multiple ways. For example, I talked about tokenization. I talked about certificate verification using hash, and actually it's like it's an ecosystem. We are bringing multiple stakeholders together. So trust is the most important thing, and of course, transparency is needed throughout the supply chain. So we talk about creating a connected ecosystem, bringing transparency, and authentication of records and documents and compliances point of view. So there are lots of things what blockchain offers. Can see a couple more questions. Could you please provide more detail on traceability? Which items we are trying to trace and waste? Oh, okay. So it starts from the waste material, say for example, plastic waste, what we collect. It starts from there. Then once the plastic waste is recycled and after that granules are created, from there produces we create products. So it covers all kind of products overall. Okay, next question. How do you trace recycled product? What is the technology being used to trace it? So, for example, you're creating plastic granules using plastic waste. Okay, so whatever plastic waste you have collected from different places, what is the kind of plastic granules you're creating? So there's a linkage and there's a recording because all different stakeholders are recording their own data. So information is there, and that is what is used for traceability purpose for manufacturing of whatever plastic waste or whatever recycling waste you have, from where the waste has come from. And we are using geolocation because the data is collected by capturing from location. So mobile captures data on geolocation. So geolocation as well as the kind of waste has been collected, who has provided, all of that information is there in the system. So yeah, thank you, Anju. And Vikram, yes, this kind of solution is much required. Yes, is what is right. Okay, any other question?
Thanks, Naresh. That was a great presentation, and I believe sustainable supply chain is the way to go forward. And with all the compliance requirements also coming into picture, we definitely look forward to solutions like these. And thanks for sharing how to build a solution using blockchain technology and how it adds the value. So up next, we have Jijo joining us from Chainyard. So Jijo is VP at Chainyard. So maybe you already are familiar with Jijo because he is always wonderful to talk to. He has been a great ambassador for us within this region. And I'll probably let Jijo talk more about what he is bringing in today as part of this topic. Right, so over to you, Jijo.
Thank you, Arun. Can everyone hear me? Arun, can you hear me well?
Yes, and we can see your presentation slide deck.
Okay, thank you, Arun. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Good morning, everybody from India. So I have talked about this trust your supplier network, I think last year also. So I brought it up to Arun. He said it's a good example to bring it up again. So I thought we will rerun, but you will see that the network has grown big from last year. So just one line about Chainyard. Chainyard is a blockchain services firm. We started in 2015 along with IBM in the Hyperledger community. 2018 we started this product, Trust Your Supplier. So Trust Your Supplier is a product line within Chainyard, owned and operated by Chainyard. So if you very quickly get into Trust Your Supplier, we actually don't sell these days Trust Your Supplier as a blockchain solution. We just Trust Your Supplier as a solution which actually uses blockchain, but blockchain is not a key selling point for a solution. We don't tell about I mean, the earlier days of 3-4 years back, if you put blockchain label in your product, your product get a much better visibility. I mean, we right now think blockchain is more of an enabler because it just definitely give you the trust and relationship. It actually gives the trusted identity of a supplier in a buyer's network. But it is much more than blockchain, because you would see when in the presentation, because the trust is not just by the network. Actually, trust is by who is bringing in that trust in the network, right? So that part is very key. So if I have to explain this solution, let's just quickly get into a buyer-supplier relationship. So this product is on a procurement space. We started fundamentally on the procurement space because we thought in a supply chain starts with the procurement area. So eventually maybe 3-4 years down the line, the product will add features, go all the way to the end of the supply chain network. But the starting point of any supply chain is procuring a supplier on the buyer's network. So we started with that very fundamental use case. So if you have not worked on procurement space, the way procurement work is once a buyer needs to find a supplier. So there's a discovery aspect. So there is not a good discovery platforms out there. There is some existing centralized systems like SAP Ariba has a solution, and there are a few other people has a supplier discovery solution. Then the second thing happens is qualification. Basically, once you got a 50 or 25 suppliers, you go through some initial qualification of them and you identify, let's say 10 of them. Then you validate, you ask those 10 people to submit all their data. Once they submit all their data, let's say starting from the financial statement, the trade license, let's say their insurance policies, board member information, some of the ESG things before you mentioned, let's say your environment certifications, all those things when they submit, you have no way of validating that. So people send it to validators like, let's say, Dun & Bradstreet, Thomson Reuters, or like chartered accountants, or you simply get into the website of the ministry and check their incorporation certificates are valid, or you check with environmental certificates, like the one before, they validate this data of this particular the supplier. Once they are validated, they get onboarded. The challenge after onboarding is, let's say 3 months down the line, maybe is insurance expert, license expert, is environmental certification expert, then this pain point continued to be validated. So once so the summary of that is the next slide. The way it works. So an example, let's say I'm a supplier. The right side is a supplier. If you can see my mouse, he submit all this data to buyer one. So when they submit, let's say buyer one asks 50 questions. They submit all this data to buyer one, and the buyer one validate that. And when buyer two comes in, the supplier submits same set of data. And the buyer three comes in, supplier submits same set of data. And probably between 1 and 3, maybe there is a time difference, so maybe data is different. Now my insurance has changed, but he has not updated the buyer one that data. So when we saw this thing, we thought, hey, why shouldn't we create a supplier identity on a blockchain network that can be cross-shared across buyers, right? So that's the starting point. So in order to validate that, the very first thing you need is take a study of the supplier data hierarchy. So what we did is we studied the supplier data hierarchy, the data submitted by supplier to buyers in the network. We found that 50% is always common. We found that if 2 buyers are the same industry, let's take an example, there's 2 technology ones, let's say IBM and Cisco, they both share another 20-25% same data. And we found that if they are the same geography, they both are in the North America, then another 10% is same. So eventually, the buyer specific data, what they request from the supplier, it's the difference probably is 5 to 10%. So this is a very, very good use case for a blockchain, where in a blockchain, you can actually share, the supplier can control his data and his identity, and he can share it across multiple buyers. So everybody, I don't need to explain why blockchain is needed for this solution, but it's probably understood. You could go with a centralized system too, but the problem with the centralized system is the supplier is not controlling his own data. Second is there is no guarantee on the trust on the data, right? So definitely you need to have a decentralized system. So what does the solution gives, right? Solution allows suppliers to create a single identity with any buyer. so that he can cross share with multiple people. He can get that thing verified by the verifiers on the network. So fundamentally, it saves the onboarding time. Today, if a buyer takes let's say 60 days to onboard a supplier, if it depends on how much data is already verified, it could get reduced to 1 day, 2 day, or could be even seconds. So what we created is a large network where there's a supplier, there's a buyer, there's a verifier, there's auditors, business network providers, and third-party developers. They all come into the same network. Now, the way it works is, you can go to YouTube, type trust your supplier, you can see the demo there. So I'm not going to run a demo, but I'll just walk you very simply how it works on the foundation layer. The very first time when a buyer wants to onboard a supplier, buyer will invite a supplier. So buyer will send, let's say, 50 questions to supplier. Supplier submits all these answers and uploads to the blockchain network. Now, the buyer wanted to verify, buyer will send it to verifier to verify those data. Now, verifier verifies the data on the blockchain network. And once it is verified, the buyer onboards the supplier. Now, the first case, it is same as the current network. It takes 60 days. But when the supplier comes and try to onboard a buyer, let's say into another buyer, let's say on the same geography. On the same geography, you will find that around 80-90% of the questions are same. So when the buyer 2 comes in and invites supplier, he looks at the questionnaires and sees that 80% of the questions are same. So all he has to do is just right mouse click and share that verified data to the second buyer 2. So the buyer 2 has to then verify only the rest of the 20% of questions. So the first part of doing this is standardization of the data. We wanted to get a standardization on the procurement space. So any buyer who coming to our network, he has to go through a remap his existing onboarding process into a standardized form in the blockchain network. So how does it applicable, right? It is what we come is like the biggest advantage of such a network is risk and compliance. And the risk and compliance get eased out by the verifiers coming in and verifying the data. The risk and compliance today, there's a large set the trust your supplier verifies is starting from identity, bribery, anti-bribery, banking, cybersecurity, sustainability, financial health. I'll show you some of the verifiers in our next slide. Health and safety. So if you look at the deck, like as an example, EcoVadis is a verifier in our blockchain network who actually verifies all the ESG and environmental safety and those aspects. I think Dun & Bradstreet verifies all the diversity, inclusion, identity, sanctions, and all those things. Rapid rating actually gives the risk rating for the client. So there is a large set of people join the network. So this is only a sample set. So what we did is we did something slightly different from a traditional blockchain network. So we created a governance board. We created a governance board with a large 18 companies, Fortune 200 companies, each 1 or 2 companies from each domain. As an example, from the financial side, we have American Express and JP Morgan. From the telecom, we have Nokia joined. From the oil and gas, we have BHP and Aramco. Technology, we have IBM and Cisco. From the manufacturing, we have Lenovo. So we created from the verifiers, we have Dun & Bradstreet. So we created a consortium with this governance board. So what this consortium does is, in the consortium, make sure fair representation of everyone in the network. Make sure the features, which features get prioritized in what order, and make sure the marketing of the network, getting people, all fair aspects of the network is maintained by the governance board. And there are some buyers which we call the founding buyers. Those buyers, we couldn't get them on the governance board. So those people continue to support us. Validators are the people who actually validate the data on network. This slide is pretty old one. So you see that there's a large set of validators here in this older slide. and business network. So there is a two different approaches. Again, this is a very good approach for some of you who are actually trying to create such network. See, validators are the people validate data on the blockchain network. Business network are the people who actually takes data from our blockchain network and provide additional services on top of that. As an example, SAP Ariba is a business network. So using SAP Ariba, let's say you are using SAP Ariba today as your procurement solution. You can continue to use SAP Ariba, but instead of using SAP Ariba's database, you will plug in the Trust Your Supply database. So you get a trusted, verified data on your existing client system. So the way we did this, we created a skeleton API. We exposed the API to people. So the community can take those APIs and create a new solution on top of our Trust Your Supplier network. So eventually it becomes a marketplace, right? The marketplace of like an Amazon marketplace, right? Our marketplace of all buyers and suppliers coming into one single network. And once all the suppliers and buyers are there, we can add more services. I mean, Chainyard can add ourselves more services. These business network people, they can come and add more services. Like for example, you can add a service called find a supplier, find a buyer, or do trade finance on top of this. Right? I mean, the opportunities are actually endless on this particular. So in today, the current status, it's in production. You can go trust your supplier and you can sign up. It is available in 70 countries, 70 plus countries. I think 30 plus global Fortune 500 buyers are already there. The large set of, I think, more than 24 third-party validators there. Supplier ramping up suppliers and partners. So the way we went to the market is we don't onboard suppliers. We actually onboard the buyers into the blockchain network. Once the buyers are onboarded, each with their standardized data set, these buyers go and onboard their suppliers. I mean, I don't need to go through the benefits. It's all self-explanatory. I mean, for this community, I think I can. This particular slide might be of interest to people with a technology background a lot. So on the privacy, this is the first question which comes to all of us. How does the privacy is maintained, right? Because suppliers are worried about their own data. So if you look at the beauty of blockchain allows you to control your data and you can share to whoever people you wanted, right? So we went through audit. We went to GDPR audit, CCPA, HIPAA, SOX 1, 2, SOX, all those audits. So this audits are being cleared. So it follows the policies, it follows the consents, it follows the clarification, third-party management. PA is maintained in option databases, financials ownership. There's a large set of security aspects being covered by this Trust Your Supply network. And most importantly, we have a large governance board. So I think I'll stop at this point. There are more presentations coming up. I'm open for questions. Is there any? If there are any?
Hi, this is Sandeep here. Very nice presentation, Jijo, and very insightful. And governing board is a very good example here. So this network is being used by, let's say, any financial institution also, or is it more to do with the buyer-supplier combination, or today the banks are also using it?
Yeah, this American Express and the other one, right? The two of them are the governance board, right? JP Morgan. So they come in as a buyers in the network. So all these companies have thousands of suppliers they have today. So an example like I think Nokia or IBM's or all those people definitely will have more than 10,000 suppliers. 10,000, some of them 20, 30, 40,000 suppliers. So managing the suppliers is a painful thing. As an example, let's take the reverse order of a supplier. Let's say one supplier is connected to 25 buyers. Today his trade license expires. He has to go through renew that thing and submit copy to all 25 buyers. All 25 buyers go and verify that data. In a blockchain network, he updates or submits only once, and a verifier comes and verifies it. Smart contract updates everybody. So 90% of the data is automated. So any company, it is across all region, all domain, anyone who can come and join as a buyer. Now your second part of your question is, can a banking or someone come and create a trade finance on top of this, right? I think you are going to that line, Sandeep. Yes, definitely. I think there is already one company who actually signed up. I think TradeShift is a member in that region. They are not, that particular services is not at start of offering, but that is in the roadmap. And even your company, if it's a large bank, wanted to offer trade finance or certain applications on top of this, let's say product pricing or those things, we can definitely come in the roadmap once. That is why we went and started at the procurement space, not instead of opening the network at the. Some companies started on the supply chain provenance play. Some people started on the trade finance aspect, and we thought it is most ideal. And when China started this, we went with straight with the IBM procurement. So Bob Murphy of CPO of IBM, he is a partner. IBM is a partner in this particular solution. So we take it to the market together.
Okay. So very interesting. So I'll connect with you probably subsequently and engage and understand more how to connect on this system. So you are the right person for this?
Yeah, I'm actually the VP. So the whole team is in a larger team is in the US, the Gary store. But I can definitely take you to a level of making a decision. And once we are on board, we could hand over to the full-fledged trust your supplier team.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks, Jijo. We have networking breakout coming up after the next talk, so we'll have more networking going on over there. And thanks, Jijo. I guess this was a great idea. Especially the consortium model, the governance model that you brought up. What has worked as per your experience, and the way the problem statement itself is positioned, that makes a great benefit of blockchain technology itself. So up next we have. Thanks, Jijo again. Up next, we have Srusti, who is a director at Settlement. So Srusti has been quite remarkable, and she has been a great volunteer for us recently. So she started knowing about Hyperledger India chapter, and then there's a lot to learn from each other and all the experience that our organization has brought in recent times within blockchain technology space. And she's going to talk about how blockchain technology is simulating, it is acting as a simulating tool to establish a trust economy, and how are we doing with Web3 with blockchain technology itself. So I'll let Srusti talk about more on that, and over to you, Srusti.
Yeah, thank you, Arun. Thank you for the introduction. So today I'd like to cover the topic about how blockchain technology, enterprise blockchains are making space, and what are some of the trends and a few use cases for enterprise blockchains. So what I'd like to start with definitely is the evolution of blockchain, and not going into details much, but for sure, how the evolution of the internet has been. We all know about the Web 1.0, and where it was more of an information economy, and data was being published, and not much interaction was happening. And the Web 2.0, where we're having a lot of interactions, social media is there, and data is being published. Many interactions are happening, and with the Web 3.0, where it's an internet of value, where we're working towards not only transformation of data in real time, video, audios, but also assets, fungible, non-fungible, over the internet without the need of intermediaries. More so an evolution of creating a decentralized autonomous organization and having processes and even business flows governed by smart contracts. So that's how the evolution of blockchain has gone through. So I'll be covering a little about what blockchain essentially is, what are the capabilities of blockchain, and how it becomes a good fit for enterprises, differentiating between the centralized databases and enterprise blockchain, and what are the few of the use cases. So so blockchain can be considered as an electronic ledger where we are maintaining record of all transactions in a decentralized way, which is distributed over a network of nodes, which are computers processing the information. So it's a shared database that can record these transactions in a verifiable way and an essentially immutable way. Where it comes from definitely is the fact that we would want more control to the user, where we see between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0 there is an increasing need of giving more control to the end users, and of also the evolution of self-sovereign identities and digital identities. So that's where blockchain is making space, and we are having real-time and unalterable records replicated among all the participants. So this is an intuitive way of looking at a blockchain that where all the transactions are recorded in a block, and the transactions are linked cryptographically through hash algorithms, which essentially makes it tamper-proof or tamper-resistant. So that's one aspect, and the hash algorithms are used as a function to compute data of any arbitrary length and return a fixed data. So it ensures the consistency of the content which is being put on the blockchain. So a blockchain essentially in an enterprise scenario is creating a secure communication to synchronize the data and events between different network participants. And it's being used to simplify the infrastructure and streamline operations, and of course enable new business models. So what are the some of the features or the capabilities of blockchain which make it essentially suitable for in enterprises? So one definitely is the fact that the blockchain is using cryptographically, so it's decentralized and it's cryptographically secure. The other one is definitely that we are using different consensus algorithms to ensure the validation of the transactions which are happening. So for the public blockchains, there is proof of work, there's proof of stake, and for enterprise blockchain, voting-based consensus algorithms are being used. And each of the data is being replicated across the nodes, and it's a single source of copy and a single shade of truth. Transparency is being maintained by using blockchain. So apart from that, of course, with the evolution of public blockchains, there has been movement through the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, where we've efforts to make it more Turing complete, and that's where smart contracts are being used. So what essentially smart contracts are? These are predetermined rules which can enforce business logics, and the terms and conditions can be enforceable, and they're basically if then else code which are put on blockchain and can enforce the conditions in near real time. So what are the features which make it the drivers for enterprise blockchain? One, of course, it's a shared database where the provenance and the validation of the transactions can be accounted for, and the immutability part of it, where the transactions are basically cryptographically linked, and the consensus algorithms are used for the validation of transactions which are there. So with the enterprise blockchains, definitely there are different types of blockchains being used, public blockchains, private blockchains, enterprise blockchains. There is more required of a decentralization, where we are having permissioned blockchains and with people with certain permissions and can access the blockchains, which ensures the security and the privacy over the chain. So what makes a blockchain and traditional database? What are some of the inherent capabilities? So blockchain would come into picture where we are looking and would reign supreme over a central database, where we are looking for a disintermediation, and we are looking for a secure and robust network. And of course, if there are certain audit trails, if we are looking to reduce the frictions in the business reconciliations, dispute resolutions, and of course, transferring digital assets over the network. So those are the scenarios in business networks where blockchain is reigning supreme over the traditional distributed database networks. And some of the use cases where these are being used for is solving as a collaboration platform to solve for the coordination failures and horizontal integration over an ecosystem of participants across the different industries. And of course, there is the digital identities and self-sovereign identities, which are governed by W3C standards, which are ensuring how we are maintaining digital identities in over the internet, where we're having different avatars and maintaining them in a decentralized way. And of course, using smart contracts to enforce compliance for the business rules. So while we're having a blockchain with its different capabilities, there's also a degree of decentralization which is to be maintained for enterprise blockchain. So if we'll have a look at the right-hand side, extreme right of the spectrum, we'll see the centralized ledgers, which are the traditional systems with high throughput and privacy being maintained. And towards the left is the public blockchains, where essentially there are efforts to make them censorship resistant, no changes being made by the central authorities, and all governed by the network, by consensus algorithms like proof of work. So enterprise blockchains make way somewhere in between, where we're looking for permissioned and more secure network, where there can be a privacy of the transaction networks, which is happening. So this is an overview of how the enterprise blockchain is different from the traditional distributed ledgers. And of course, since it's over a peer-to-peer network, there's no single point of failures. And in enterprise blockchain, while the accounting is being maintained for disparate parties over a network, if you'll have a look, there are manual processes and a lot of time lags would happen while the accounting is happening through the manual processes. And over an enterprise blockchain, it provides for a secure communication protocol that would automate the intra-firm processes and make it more efficient and transactions happening in a near real-time network. So while these things can, of course, being done by traditional databases, blockchain would make a more suitable business sense or business case for enterprises, because if we have a look, the number of API integrations and the cost of maintenance which would happen if we are trying to collaborate over participants which are more than 4 would be a lot. Whilst the same over an enterprise blockchain, where each of the entity is having each of the enterprise is having its own identity. It's a more scalable architecture, and even the cost wise, it would be much suitable. So these are the scenarios where we're looking for cross collaboration among different participants over a network where blockchain reigns supreme over the traditional databases. So where exactly the enterprise blockchain makes place. So this is an overview of the enterprise blockchain architecture. While the upstream side of it, you will see that we are having the ingestion, the validation, and the document management. Enterprise blockchain is basically the data tier of the application, which takes care of the business logic and the transaction recording happening. So there are a lot of questions which we get, that why blockchain, why not traditional basis? But it's just that coming from the fact that a blockchain is a secure database, which has some of the inherent capabilities which would make it would solve for the non-repudiation part of it, a verifiability, accountability part of it. So this is an insight into the enterprise application architecture, where we'd see where blockchain is making space. So we have the entire stack where we are, of course, having the distributed ledger, the transactions, as part of the infrastructure, we're having the consensus mechanism and the security controls and the smart contracts deployed. We can do the data sourcing through different platforms, which can be CRMs, ERPs, and of course, because of the challenges which we face because of adaptation, this data sourcing can also be done through WhatsApp or EDIs or Excels, and that's and of course this can be linked to the external web applications or the front-end applications, mobile applications, and also dashboards and reports can be provided. So when does blockchain make sense is while we are looking for a shared repository. There are multiple writers, limited trust, digital transfer of digital assets to reduce the cost of intermediaries in a decentralized way, and providing for transparency, and of course, where there are multiple batch reconciliations happening, transaction dependencies. These are scenarios where a blockchain application would make much of business sense to enterprises. And of course, while we are using a blockchain for the digital transformation in enterprises, it's also creating new network-based business models, leveraging technologies like IoT, big data, machine learning, and analytics. And it's disrupting different sectors. While it started with the financial industry, it's making way into the different sectors of manufacturing and supply chain, logistics, trade, finance, the public sector extensively in smart cities, and a lot of way in the identity management for self-sovereign identity. So these are some of the advantages of blockchain for enterprises, where we are having a process efficiency through the transaction management, the transactions being validated by smart contracts in a continuous manner, and then visibility with all participants. And of course, we are using microservices and container-based applications, and taking care of disaster recovery in the blockchain applications which we are making. It's giving the enabling the business models with a trusted data and a single source of data, and providing for a continuous accounting and verifiability of transactions. So which of the sectors? Currently blockchain is disrupting multiple sectors, starting definitely making a sway in the financial services, in the banks and BFSI, but also in the retail, consumer and agri businesses, energy sector for peer-to-peer energy use cases, the trading platforms for green energy are being done, and also in the transportation and logistics. And these are some of the use cases which are happening. So in the pharma and life sciences, there are use cases for product authenticity validation, different use cases for the way voting is being done, where we're automating maybe paper-based voting, asset tokenization in the financial sector, where fractional trading of assets like stocks and bonds are being done, and providing for a transparency in the donation space, trade finance, KYC, a centralized KYC system for multiple banks, where it would provide better consumer interactions, and of course a centralized place where all the information can be leveraged by multiple banks. So quickly, I'll go through a few of the use cases which we've developed at settlement. One is definitely of a sustainable track and trace solution, which we've delivered for one of the leading breweries at AB InBev, where so they were faced with a couple of challenges. One, of course, is over their supply chain and multitudes of flow. They were looking for a transparency because a lot of data was being maintained in silos. And second, definitely from a sustainability standpoint, while they wanted to help the indirect farmers. So we helped them develop a blockchain-based application where we provided transparency into the entire value chain. So from the time the grain is harvested till the time the beer reaches the end consumer, the end consumer can have visibility into the entire journey. And of course, from the sustainability standpoint, the data benchmarking helped the indirect farmers to improve their productivity, profitability, and environmental footprint. So what I'll just do, I'll quickly also show an insight of So this is the application which we created for the end user. While you scan the QR code, which is available at the package, the consumer is able to see the entire journey from the time the grain is harvested, which farm, which is the farmer, details about the farmer, the timestamp. Then it's transported to the malting company. And of course, it undergoes various transformation in the malting company. It's kilned, it's heated, and what time, all the information is available to the end consumer. And after that, it reaches the brewery, where again it goes into multiple transformation, where the malt is consumed and different products are produced at different levels before it is fermented and bottled and retailed to the end distribution. So this is the details which are available to the end consumer, providing for the increased trust. And of course, also helping them from the sustainability standpoint, where the GHG emissions and the yield of the farmers is being marked and benchmarked by our client. And for this solution, we are using Hyperledger Besu. Okay, we are still seeing the PPT. Oh. Okay, I just saw. Give me a moment. Is the screen visible now?
Yes.
Okay. So I just missed that message. So this is details of the journey where the end consumer, while consuming the beer, can have insight into which farmer, at what time the grain is harvested, the barley is harvested. It moves to the malting company, which malting company, what time, what is the transformation which happens at the malting company, and of course then it's transported to the brewery, which is AB InBev. At AB InBev, it undergoes multiple transformation where the malt is converted into wort and bica before it's actually fermented and bottled and retailed to the end consumer. So all the information with timestamp is available to the end consumer, and that provides for increasing the customer trust, and also it helps them from the sustainability standpoint. So I'll just run through a couple of more use cases, and then we could have any go for any questions if there are any. Also with Callright Group, we helped them develop a farm to fork use case where they were having some challenges with respect to proving the provenance of the bio pig which is there, and so we helped them develop a blockchain-based solution which provided for the digital history of the pigs, where what time the pig has been in the farm, which is the organic farm, what is the feed, how much time it spent with its mother. That recalls is important for the quality of the pig, and of course then it moves to the slaughterhouse when the first processing is done. Then again it moves to Callright Group, where multiple processing is again done, and the entire journey with timestamp is available to the end consumer using the blockchain-based application, that of course has helped in increasing the brand engagement and unlocking new data mining capabilities. And this is one last voting case which we have done for Indonesia. For the presidential elections of 2019, and it's not the it's just a replication. It's not the real elections, just for a tabulation coin count of the voting which has been done. So in Indonesia, there are 17,000 islands, and this was an automation of the paper-based voting, and of course to reduce the stress which happens till the time the results of the voting come, which essentially takes 6 weeks. The blockchain-based application was able to provide a tabulation of the vote count in a time period of 4 hours, and there was multiple levels of aggregation in Indonesia, where from the national level to the province to the district level to the regency, and then there are polling stations. So what we did was, of course, not getting the entire system on the blockchain, but the result of at each polling station, which was witnessed, and a photographic evidence of that was put on the blockchain. And this is another P2P energy use case where we are automating the supply and demand and the bid management over a trading platform that was developed along with Actility, which maintained the meter at the different suppliers and different firms. And of course, the blockchain-based solution helped in the accelerated settlement in near real time. So any questions? I'd like to take that.
I'm Firoz here. Actually, might be the question is back to the buyer and supplier relation. So my question is, do you have a mechanism currently working, or you have plans to have a feedback, constructive feedbacks from the suppliers, or the buyers and create a sort of a scoring which can really easily available for the buyer, on a credibility or a reliability perspective. That is one question. And the second question is, we talk about reliability or trust on suppliers. Why can't we think the other way also? Why shouldn't we have the same way trust on methods to trust on the buyers also? You can think about a buyer who's about to go into a bankruptcy and still going into deals with a supplier. So these are the two questions probably I think. I'm not specifically to this slides, but might be back to what Jijo has presented before. Thank you.
Right. So what I'd like to say, I mean, for this, I mean, Jiju can add for sure about this. While we would like to create a system for the suppliers and a trust system for that. On the others, so I think I'll ask Jiju to that question. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Srishti.
Yeah.
Definitely both the models are there. The first model is already existing. So you can have a supplier credit rating or risk rating based on the various combinations of suppliers' data. And there are service providers who provide this risk rating into the blockchain network. And the second one, the reverse. The reverse one also, I believe it's new to me, but it's a very interesting question. It's definitely it is doable, right? I mean, so if let's say Dun & Bradstreet is providing or Rapid Rating is providing a rating, they can provide the other reverse direction also. So that's why in my presentation, if I take one more line and add, when my presentation I said, see, blockchain provides you trust, but it depends on who actually giving you the rating, right? If a company who is not trustless is giving a credit rating of 10 out of 10, blockchain will just carry that. So you need to ensure that ecosystem, the set of people providing the trust are actually the trusted people. Blockchain ensures the immutability. Thank you.
Thanks, Rusty. Thanks, Jijo. I guess that answers the famous saying within blockchain technology space, right? So what we put in blockchain is what we get outside. So if we put garbage in, we get garbage out. So while it's important that we gain immutability aspect from the blockchain technology, it's also important how well we validate the data sources and then how effectively we make use of the data points within what we are going to store within blockchain technology, and then make best benefit of smart contracts. So we are going to stop live streaming on YouTube, and we are going to switch into a networking break now. So for all those who are watching us on YouTube, maybe you can join to our Zoom channel for networking break. Hey, Julian.
Hi. Camera's on.
Yeah,
I guess YouTube streaming is still going on. Probably we should stop it.
Yeah, I don't know. This will be an interesting experiment.
Maybe you can transfer me the host. I'll try to stop it.
Okay. Or I can stop it. You want me to stop it? I can stop live stream.